Zaire Franklin trying to reel in C.J. Stroud a little bit. And you know what? This is one of the things that Sims and I have been talking about, Charean. Last year, the Texans had everything line up for them perfectly. No one was paying attention. All their games were at 1 Eastern. They were able to survive and thrive. They lost a game. Nobody was like, oh, what an embarrassment, because we expected them to lose. We expected them to lose every week. When they won, it was like, oh, that's cute. Hey, that's nice. They're really trying hard. Hey, they got lucky today. And then they compile enough wins to come down to Week 18 and beat the Colts. They didn't cook the Colts. It was a close game that could have gone either way. They beat the Colts in a close game and win the division and get to the playoffs. And then they really did cook the Browns. But what's it going to be like this year as they are front runners, as they are a team when we get the schedule next Wednesday night and we're talking about it next Thursday morning? They're not going to have all 1 o'clock Eastern games. You look at their opponents, they're going to be in prime time a lot. They're going to be in standalone games a lot. They may be going to Dallas on Thanksgiving. Wouldn't that be something? Houston at Dallas Thanksgiving Day. They are going to be scrutinized. They lose a game. You know, Chris was saying yesterday, what if they go to Kansas City Week 1 and lose? What if they have a Monday night game the following week or a Sunday night game and lose and they're 0-2? 0-2 last year, who cares? 0-2 this year, the sky is falling. It's a very different vibe for the Texans, and I want to see how they handle the success they had this year, because it creates a much higher bar. The success last year creates a much higher bar this year.
Yeah, they didn't start out very well. You remember the first game, Mike, they get blown out by the Ravens, and they have a losing record, and all of a sudden they turn it around and start winning some games, but nobody noticed. You're right. They were in that noon Central Time window, 1 Eastern Time window, and nobody paid attention to them. Very few people saw them. It could be, you remember last year they sent Detroit. Detroit was the up-and-coming team, and they send Detroit to play the Chiefs in Week 1, and Detroit wins that game. It could be the same thing. They say, oh, we have this up-and-coming team in Houston who nobody saw last year. They have an exciting quarterback. We're going to send them to Kansas City Week 1. That wouldn't surprise me a bit if that happened, if it's Houston Week 1 at Kansas City. But yeah, they're going to have more targets on their backs. They're going to have more primetime games than what they had last year, which was 0. They're going to be under more scrutiny and more pressure. They've added all these. They're a favorite. Like, people are saying they could contend. They could be the team to beat the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl this year. So a lot more pressure, a lot different, Mike, than it was last year when they just went under the radar and were cool all year long. No pressure on them whatsoever. Anything they got was a real bonus. A lot more pressure this year.
Look at those games. Ravens, Bills, Dolphins, Bears, Lions at home. And then on the road, they go to Kansas City. They go to Dallas. They go to Green Bay. They go to Minnesota. That's not going to be an easy game for them if the Vikings are better this year. So last year, they did start 0-2. They lost 25-9 to the Ravens, 31-20 to the Colts, 0-2. This year, if that happens, the sky is falling. Yep. And last year, they turned it around. They went to Jacksonville and thumped the flavor of the month for 2023, or I guess the flavor of the year it should be, 37-17, and we just viewed it as a fluke. It was an aberration. They dismantled the Steelers. Oh, their offense stinks. Steelers are bad. Oh, they had lower pad level. That was the excuse that was given after that. Not the Texans might be pretty damn good. So they just were able to, in relative to the NFL anonymity, churn their way through the season, gradually like, hey, well, maybe we should be taking this team seriously. Very different vibe this year, as evidenced by the fact that Zaire Franklin is still thinking about last year. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to use the Texans as a measuring stick team this year. Last year, they were the exact opposite. They were the team in the AFC that most people would have said they have no chance of making it to the playoffs. And, of course, they do. One thing we're learning in recent years, the team that we think has no chance to make the playoffs is probably going to make the playoffs. Happened to the Bengals. Remember that draft we did? I'd like to forget. In 21, first pick, team that has no chance to make the playoffs, Cincinnati Bengals. They make it all the way to the Super Bowl and almost win it. If Aaron Donald doesn't get to Joe Burrow, they would have won it because Jalen Ramsey fell down trying to cover Jamar Chase. All right, let's take a break. When we return, a little follow-up to the conversation we had yesterday about whether or not NFL players can play in the NBA or vice versa. That's next here on PFT Live. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.